Life stories, a journey of redemption. Sometimes, the truth hides in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to be uncovered. Ethan Caldwell, the proud owner of Harbor Cafe, believed he had built a place of warmth and community. But when two young boys walked into his restaurant searching for answers, everything changed. Their words led him down a path of self-discovery, forcing him to confront a past he had long ignored. What happens when a man faces the consequences of his own blindness? Can redemption truly heal old wounds? Subscribe to our channel to begin today's story with life stories. The gentle hum of conversation floated up through the floorboards, mingling with the soft clatter of plates and silverware below. From my small office above the dining area, I looked down through the glass window, watching the familiar rhythm of Harbor Cafe play out beneath me. The warm glow of pendant lights reflected off polished wood tables, casting a golden hue over the patrons as they laughed, leaned in over steaming plates, and exchanged stories. I should have felt proud. This place had been my dream, a haven for people of all backgrounds. A cafe that felt like home. Harbor Cafe had started as nothing more than a vision. A place where I wanted people to gather, connect, and share in the joy of good food. And for years, it had flourished, becoming a staple of the neighborhood, celebrated for its creative menu and welcoming atmosphere. But as I sat there, gazing at the life teeming below, an emptiness curled in my chest. A quiet ache that I couldn't quite explain. Something was missing. It wasn't the food. The dishes coming out of the kitchen were as vibrant and well prepared as ever. It wasn't the customers, they still filled the seats, their voices blending into the familiar, comforting hum of a busy evening. And yet, as I looked closer, I could see it. The way some of the servers moved with a kind of restrained efficiency rather than genuine warmth. The way laughter among the staff felt rehearsed. The way tension seemed to linger just beneath the surface. Then I saw her, a waitress. No more than 20, forced smile in place as she cleared a cup of spilled coffee from a table. The customer, an older man in a crisp suit, didn't acknowledge her, didn't apologize. She hesitated for just a second, muttering something under her breath before rushing away. I frowned. It wasn't the first time I had noticed it. Over the past year, I had felt a shift in the air of Harbor Cafe, something subtle yet undeniable. Employees had left suddenly, citing vague reasons that I hadn't questioned too deeply at the time. But now, I was starting to wonder if I should have. My mind drifted back to the early days. 5 years ago, when I had been here every single day, talking to customers, checking every detail. I had wanted to create something real, something that mattered. I named it Harbor Cafe because I had imagined it as a sanctuary, a place where anyone, no matter their background, could walk in and feel at home. But as the business grew, I had stepped back, letting my managers handle the day-to-day operations. I still visited, of course, but I wasn't there the way I used to be. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe, somewhere along the way, Harbor Cafe had stopped being a home and had become just another business. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Lisa, my senior manager, stepped in, holding a stack of reports. Efficient as always, she placed them on my desk. Everything looks good this month, she said, her tone brisk and professional. Revenue's up 5%, and we've had glowing reviews online. I nodded, forcing a smile. That's great. I glanced at the reports, but I didn't reach for them. Numbers had never been the full story, not really. A place could thrive on paper and still be missing its heart. How's the team doing? I asked. Lisa hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then, with the same polished efficiency, she replied, fine, no major issues. Something about her response felt too rehearsed, too distant, but I didn't press further. After she left, I leaned back in my chair, staring at the reports without reading a single word. The nagging feeling from earlier refused to let go. That night, as I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of it settled fully in my chest. I had lost touch with Harbor Cafe, not just the business, but the people, the heart of it, the very thing I had once loved so fiercely. I needed to see it with fresh eyes. Not as the owner, but as just another customer. The next evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I walked into Harbor Cafe not as the owner, not as the man in charge, but as a customer. I had dressed for anonymity, trading my usual tailored jacket for a worn hoodie, a pair of jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over my face. The air was crisp with the scent of rain, the streets slick with reflections of neon signs as I approached the cafe. For a brief moment, I hesitated outside, staring at my own reflection in the window. Would I even recognize this place anymore? Taking a breath, I stepped inside. The familiar hum of conversation and the comforting clink of silverware welcomed me. The space still exuded warmth, the polished wooden tables, the hanging lights casting a golden glow, the gentle buzz of people engaged in conversations. But as I moved through the cafe, slipping into a booth in the back, I let myself observe in a way I hadn't in years. At first glance, everything seemed as it should be. The servers moved briskly, plates balancing effortlessly on their trays. Customers leaned in over steaming dishes, sharing stories, their laughter floating through the air. But then, I began to notice things I hadn't before. Most of the diners were white. A few tables were occupied by people of color. But they seemed quieter, less at ease. Across the room, I saw a black waitress approach a table, her smile polite yet stiff. The customer spoke to her curtly, barely looking up. She nodded, her shoulders tight, and walked away. Something about the way she moved stuck with me, a hesitation, a resignation in her posture. It was subtle, but it was there. And then, I saw them. 2 boys, no older than 12 or 14, sitting in a booth near the corner. They were black, their clothes slightly worn, and they looked out of place. Not because they didn't belong, but because they felt like they didn't. They kept glancing around nervously, as if expecting someone to tell them to leave. Their low voices carried just enough for me to catch snippets of their conversation. "Are you sure this is the place?" the younger one whispered, his fingers tracing the edge of the table. "Mom said he's here all the time." The older one replied firmly, "We just need to wait." I felt a shift in the air, an inexplicable weight settling in my chest. Who were they waiting for? And why did their voices carry something deeper than just nerves? As I studied them from the corner of my eye, the younger boy bit his lip. "What if he doesn't care?" he murmured. "What if he just laughs at us?" The older one clenched his jaw. "He'll care," he said, a quiet fire in his voice. "He has to." A strange unease crept over me. Who were they talking about? And why did I have the sinking feeling that whoever it was, might be me? I tried to focus on the menu in front of me, but the words blurred together. My mind was still on the 2 boys. They weren't just waiting for someone. They were waiting for a reckoning. I stole another glance at them. The older boy sat with his back straight, his dark eyes scanning the room, his expression hard and determined. The younger one fidgeted, his fingers picking at the edge of the table, his shoulders slightly hunched, as if trying to make himself smaller. Then I heard it. "Mom said he's the reason we're stuck like this," the older one muttered, barely above a whisper. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table. Who was their mother? And what had I done to her? A waitress approached, breaking my train of thought. "Can I get you something to drink?" she asked. Her smile practiced. I cleared my throat. "Water's fine," I said, barely glancing up. She nodded and walked away. But I barely noticed. My attention was fixed on the boys. "Mom said he didn't even try to help her," the older boy continued, voice low but firm. "She gave everything to this place. And he just let it happen." The younger one hesitated. "What if we're wrong? What if it wasn't his fault?" The older boy shook his head. "It was him. Mom showed me his picture. I know what he looks like." A chill ran down my spine. They were talking about me. My breath felt shallow. A memory stirred in the back of my mind. Something half buried under years of success, expansion, and distance. A name. A face I hadn't thought about in a long time. Then, the older boy said it. "Mom said he let them treat her like she was nothing." The room suddenly felt too warm. The air thick. I had always prided myself on building Harbor Cafe as a place of inclusion. A place where everyone felt welcome. But as I listened to these boys, 2 children who carried their mother's pain, I wondered if I had been blind. Had I missed something? Had I turned a blind eye to something that had cost someone everything? The younger boy looked around. Voice barely above a whisper. What if we get caught? We won't. The older one replied. We're just here to see him. We don't have to do anything, yet. I clenched my jaw. I couldn't just sit there anymore, pretending I didn't hear every word. I had come here to reconnect with the heart of my cafe. But now, it felt like I was standing on the edge of something far more personal. Far more painful. And I had no idea what I was about to uncover. I had a choice. I could stand up, walk away, and pretend I hadn't heard a thing. Pretend that these two boys weren't sitting in my cafe, carrying the weight of something I had done, something I didn't even remember. Or, I could face it. Taking a deep breath, I slid out of my booth and walked toward their table. The wooden floor creaked under my steps. But they didn't notice me at first. They were too wrapped up in their whispered conversation. Their heads bent close together. Then the older one looked up. His body tensed immediately, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. Hey, I said, keeping my voice light, my posture open. You two okay? The younger boy shrank slightly into his seat, glancing at his brother for guidance. The older one squared his shoulders. We're fine, he said, his tone clipped. I hesitated for only a second before pulling out the chair across from them. Mind if I sit? The older boy glared at me, his expression guarded, but he didn't say no. I lowered myself into the seat, folding my hands on the table. I overheard a little bit of what you were saying. I admitted. You're looking for someone. The younger boy's breath hitched, his fingers tightening on the edge of the table. The older one exhaled sharply, jaw clenched. Why do you care? He asked, his voice sharp with distrust. I hesitated. I had to tread carefully. Because, I said, choosing my words slowly, if you're looking for someone, maybe I know them. I've been around this place for a while. The older boy studied me, his eyes scanning my face. I could see his mind working, the gears turning, searching for something, some proof, some confirmation. Then his expression shifted. His eyes widened slightly, his posture went rigid, and I knew. He had figured it out. Wait a second, he said slowly, his voice filled with something between realization and anger. You look familiar. I swallowed hard. A lot of people say that. No, he said, shaking his head. His voice was rising now, laced with certainty. It's you. You're him. You're Ethan Caldwell. The younger boy gasped, his face paling. Are you serious? He turned back to his brother, eyes darting between us. The older boy didn't even look at him. His gaze was locked on me. A heavy silence stretched between us. And then, the words that made my stomach drop. Because of what you did to our mom. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Because I still had no idea what I had done. But these boys, they did. And I had a feeling I was about to find out. The cafe was alive again. Not just with customers, not just with the scent of fresh coffee and warm spices, but with something deeper, something that had been missing for far too long. It had taken time, weeks of hard conversations, of rebuilding trust, of facing the truth. Danielle had returned, not as a ghost from my past but as a leader. A force of nature who had transformed Harbor Cafe into something greater than I had ever imagined. She didn't just bring new flavors to the menu, she brought a new spirit. One of resilience, of inclusivity, of second chances. The staff, who had once been divided, now worked together with something close to admiration. The customers who had hesitated at first now came back for more. Not just for the food but for the stories behind it. And me? I had changed, too. I had spent so long thinking I was doing the right thing. Thinking that my good intentions were enough. But I had been blind to the ways I had failed. The ways I had hurt someone without even realizing it. Now, I knew better. As I stood near the front counter, watching Danielle at work, I felt something shift inside me. The weight of guilt, of regret, of all the mistakes I had made. It wasn't gone. But it was lighter now. Because I wasn't just looking back anymore. I was moving forward. Harbor Cafe had finally become what I had always dreamed it could be. A place where people truly belonged. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring life stories. See you in the next one.